Well, today we're going to dive right into why you have to do nothing in order to get more of what you want. Before we do that, if you're unfamiliar with who I am, it's relatively early in the morning here. My name's Tim. I've written multiple best-selling books on law of attraction, law of assumption concepts, and how to better integrate them into your life in a way that actually makes sense. And I specialize in making this esoteric stuff actually work in your life and make sense. I've helped hundreds of people do it on an individual level. Last video I was discussing about how some people really benefit from being specific when it comes to desires, and traditional, the most popular LOA advice very often is, have a burning desire, think very specifically exactly of what you want, and then just keep on being focused on it, pretend you have it or whatever. And that can work great. I mean, there's a reason that advice is so popular. It's because it can work great. However, the reality is for most of us, it's not nearly that simple, at least a lot of the time. Being specific or being general, which is in the other extreme camp you hear, is you should only be general, you shouldn't be specific at all. Those camps, and where you are kind of in that spectrum, very specific or very general, really depends, unsurprisingly, upon your state of being, how you feel, your sensibility right now. If you feel good about something, whether it's general or whether it's specific, and you feel expectant about good things happening to you, whether it's general good things or specific good things, there's a very good chance that generally speaking, good things are going to happen to you, or that specific good things are going to happen to you in regards to these energetic manifestation principles, right? It's the expectancy and the belief and the feeling that this is going to happen that makes it easier for it to happen. Now, there's so many paradoxes and nuances when it comes to this stuff, and this is what is hard to break down and why most people on YouTube are totally unable to break it down, because your individual situation has all these various nuances to it, and all of our situations do in terms of what we want. So, like, what we often see is somebody knows what they want pretty much. For instance, they want like a job promotion, but they feel like they deserve it. They are worthy of it, but they're also worried that they are not going to get it, right? And so there's this push and pull, this tug of war back and forth of like, I know what I want, or maybe I'm being general, but I have the general expectation of wanting like an improvement in my job. But I'm worried I'm not going to get it. And there's a lot of push and pull. And it's like Maxwell Maltz talks about in psycho-cybernetics. Wow, it is early in the morning. Often because there's this push and pull, we kind of we have a target in mind. We're excited to get there, and we have to fail our way to success. To be blunt, for most of us, including myself, that's usually like what these manifestation principles are like in real life. If you're aiming for a certain thing, you want it in a way you feel like you can already touch it energetically. You feel like you already have it in your mind, perhaps, if we're using kind of Neville law of assumption type of phraseology, it's already here, it's already done. But in the 3D, it's nowhere to be found. And if you have tremendous faith that it is done, I feel it, it's already here, it's about to happen, chances are what you want is going to show up faster. But for most of us, including myself, including most people I work with, including people who are very successful in the 3D world, in terms of money, relationships, health, etc., usually it's like, okay, I want this thing. I know in a way that I can have it, that I already do have it. I can feel it. It feels right? But even though I feel that, there's this doubt. And it's like, oh, is this going to lead here? And it doesn't. And it's like, oh, all right, I thought maybe it would, but no big deal. I'm gonna pivot, I'm gonna switch, and now I'm gonna go here. So it's like you're failing your way and recorrecting course over and over and over again until you get what you want. You understand what I'm saying? Nuanced stuff. If you don't know Psycho-Cybernetics, that great Maxwell Maltz book, I suggest checking it out. Also, shout out to Matt Fury. He's got a new YouTube channel, talking about a lot of psycho-cybernetics concepts in an intelligent way, unlike most YouTubers. So, yeah, failing your way to success is very important, in my opinion, because that's how most of us get what we want. Doesn't sound quite as glamorous as, like, imagine it's done and then it just shows up the next week or 3 weeks from now, and that certainly can happen again. But much more likely is like, I know I want something, and you take action, appropriate action, meaning like you do what needs to be done that day in order to kind of, hit your goal, and then you get your goal. We can come back to that Emile Coué, my favorite law of attraction teacher, come back to his line: think that you're going to get something, that something's going to happen, and you'll get it. If you want something to go away, think this is not going to happen, and it won't happen. It's about belief and expectation and building that within ourselves. And that is going to depend on the individual and where you are right now. It's a personal thing. This is why a lot of people benefit from coaching, because it's nice to hear this big picture philosophy and theory, but your individual situation is an individual situation, and it's going to be nuanced. What I was talking about yesterday, what I want to talk about a little bit in this video, is that very often for people who have had success, whether it's, in the entrepreneurial world in terms of building a business, whether it's just in terms of, achieving what they want in terms of relationships or in terms of a certain, fitness standard, artistic success, whatever it may be, very often people like that, and again, this goes for myself for sure, because I like accomplishing things. Very often you will come to a point, even when you feel like you want something, or like, there's something important that you want to create, whether it's a business or a relationship or a piece of art, whatever it may be, or like you feel like you're on the right path, you have the inspiration, you felt like it feels in tune intuitively, you feel like this is right for me. And then you hit like a roadblock, and you have to correct your course, but you don't know what to do. Nothing is clear. It's not like, oh, I've hit a roadblock, I'm just going to go over here and it's going to be solved. It's like, no, I've hit a roadblock, all right, I'm going to turn over here. Oh shit, another roadblock. Okay, well, I'll go over here. All right, I feel okay. Oh my God, another roadblock. And you can be like, oh man, I know that I want this thing. I know I want to feel more fulfilled, and that this, achieving this certain thing is going to make me feel more fulfilled. It feels aligned. But I keep on redirecting myself. And even when I redirect myself, I still feel no closer to the target, right? Again, to use psycho-cybernetics terminology. What I was mentioning in the last video, talking about Joel Goldsmith, who's a generalist, can be very helpful at those points. And I think pretty much, again, all of us are going to have these points where you don't know what to do, and you feel stuck, and you start overanalyzing and overthinking because you don't know what to do. If you're taking action, which is very important for most people, despite what you might hear in the community, if you're taking appropriate action, trying to, do what needs to be done that day, and you've been doing this for a while, weeks, maybe months, and you don't feel like you're making progress, especially in like the entrepreneurial space. Often what we should do is allow ourselves the time to stop thinking about the solution, the redirection, and the problem. To go into the void, as they popularly say. And that can look like many different things, but, we talk about it all the time on this channel. A lot of the Joel Goldsmith content, I have a playlist of Joel Goldsmith content, I'll put a link above to that, revolves around this. A lot of the Richard Dot's content, especially when we speak about Richard Dot's, who's a great modern law of attraction writer, especially like when we speak about his philosophy about dissolving the problem, revolves around the same thing. I'll put the link to the Richard Dotts playlist above. But basically, when I say allow yourself not to think about it, and again, this circles back to my book, The Joy of Not Thinking, because I've seen this time and time and time again in my life. When I stop thinking about the problem and the solution, so I'm not just not thinking about the problem, I'm also not thinking about the solution. I'm not thinking about, quote unquote, anything. I'm vibing out and letting myself just be in the beingness, in the void, as they like to say. When I allow myself to do that, to paraphrase Joel Goldsmith, to be filled in with the nothingness. I really can't talk this morning. To let the nothingness come into that vacuum. To just sit or lie down and just be. If you give yourself the space to do that, maybe just do that a few times a day for a few days or a week. And realize when you do that, when you sit down, all this stuff might be running through your head, but it just doesn't matter. Again, The Joy of Not Thinking, the last section in that book where I talk about vibing out, describes this well. I have a ton of videos describing it as well. When you allow yourself to sit or lie down, or even you can maybe even do this when you're driving or like walking, but I would say do it sitting or lying down. When you put yourself into that vacuum, into that void, where you're not looking for a solution anymore, and there's no problem anymore. If you do that enough for a few days in a row, a few times a day, for instance, there's a very good chance that flash of insight is going to come. That is going to tell you where to go next. What direction to take. And often not just what direction to take, but the exact direction you need to take to hit the goal or to go much further than you were before. Where even if you get the insight and you know what to do, and then when you hit a roadblock again, you're able to do this again. Quite frankly, this is because this practice is so much of my, spiritual LOA practice. This is the main thing I do is I just sit or lie down a few times a day and just allow myself to be. This is how I often get creative insights, especially for my work, like what I share with people in terms of, writing or on this channel or in my podcast. But also in terms of business decisions I have to make or family decisions that, my wife and I have to decide, stuff for our family, for our kids. So pausing and allowing yourself just to be, to stop thinking about the problem, but also to stop thinking about the solution, to just allow yourself to be. This is, again, why you always hear about people having their realizations, these 7-figure, 8-figure businessmen, they have these realizations in the shower, right? Or someone goes on vacation, they've been working hard on a project, but they're dragged on vacation and they're finally on vacation, and 3 or 4 days into the vacation, which they haven't enjoyed because they've been thinking about their work all the time, they finally let go a little bit of thinking about it and they're just enjoying being on the beach or whatever. And then, insight. This is the good stuff. This is real, this is how the real creative manifesting process works, in my opinion, at least from what I've seen working with people and for myself. So yeah, if you want help, if you're interested in my books, if you have questions, information is in the description. Until next time, especially if you feel like you're struggling and stressed out some, I suggest you allow yourself to be more of the time, because the truth is, you're already fine as you are.